Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Have you ever actually stopped to think about what happens when you hand over a $5 bill for your morning coffee? Or where your paycheck truly originates before it magically hits your bank account? We go through these motions every single day, participating in literally millions of microtransactions. But we rarely stop to visualize the vast interconnected network those transactions belong to. So today, we're going to demystify the invisible machinery that dictates how money and goods pulse through our daily lives. So this brings us to the fundamental question of macroeconomics, understanding exactly how money, resources, and products flow within an economy. We aren't just looking at isolated, random events here. We're observing a living, breathing ecosystem where every single transaction triggers a reaction. If you want to understand why inflation happens, why unemployment rises, or why interest rates matter, you absolutely have to understand this underlying plumbing of the entire system first. Now, looking at the entire economic map all at once is kind of like staring at a giant bowl of spaghetti. So to avoid any arrow-induced panic, we're going to build this piece by piece across 5 clear steps. The core economic engine, enter the government, the role of banking, going global, and finally, the complete flow. All right, let's jump right into section 1, the core economic engine. If you focus strictly on the outer edges for a second, you'll spot the 2 main actors in our story. Over on the left, we have households. That's you, me, the everyday consumers. And on the right, firms. These are the producers, from the little bakery on your corner to massive multinational tech conglomerates. The entire heartbeat of the economy starts right here, between these 2. Because honestly, every complex financial instrument, every massive international trade deal, it all ultimately boils down to serving this one interaction between households needing things and firms making things. Now, these 2 actors meet up in 2 totally different arenas. Up at the top is the product market. This is your weekend trip to the grocery store, buying a new laptop, or hitting subscribe on a streaming service. This is where firms have exactly what you want. But if you flip down to the resource market at the bottom, the power dynamic completely reverses. This is where you become the seller, offering your time, your energy, and your intellect to the businesses. Firms can't operate in a vacuum, right? They desperately need what you have in order to function. Let's zoom in on that resource market for a moment. When you clock in for work, you aren't just doing a job. You are actually providing the critical factors of production, which are categorized as land, labor, and capital. Your labor is your daily sweat equity, maybe your coding skills or your management expertise. Capital isn't just cash, by the way. It's the physical machinery you operate, the delivery vans, or the software you build. And land is the physical space or the natural resources required. Without these exact inputs from households, the mightiest firms literally cannot produce a single thing. They are just empty legal shells waiting for human energy to animate them. And this creates a continuous, unbroken loop of physical reality. Let's follow the journey. First, you provide your labor. Say, you spend 40 hours a week designing software for a tech firm. Second, firms take those factors of production and transform them into physical output. They take your software design and package it into a shiny new laptop. Third, that output travels up to the product market and flows right back into your living room as finished goods and services when you go buy that very same laptop for yourself. It's essentially a perpetual motion machine of human energy being transformed into products, and those products returning back to the humans. Now, here is the absolute master key to decoding this entire map, the color coding. There are 2 parallel tracks running in opposite directions. The green arrows track exactly what we just described, the physical, tangible flow of laptops, haircuts, and human labor. But for every green arrow, there is an equal and opposite red arrow, and that's the flow of money. When physical groceries flow into your house, your cash flows out. That cash then becomes a firm's revenue, which they use to buy your labor, turning right back into your wages. Goods move clockwise. Wealth moves counterclockwise. They are completely interdependent. If one stops, the other freezes instantly. Moving right along to section 2, enter the government. All right, let's introduce our first little complication to this perfectly balanced 2-player game. Anchored right in the dead center of our model is the government sector. It's positioned as a central hub because it deliberately intercepts those wild, free-flowing exchanges between the product and resource markets, interacting directly with both you and the firms. Why? Well, because as efficient as that core engine is, firms aren't going to independently build the roads they use for delivery, and households certainly can't privately fund a national defense system. This right here is the ultimate give and take.
If you follow the red arrows pointing inward, you'll see both households and firms siphoning off a portion of their money to the center in the form of taxes. Everybody's favorite red arrow, I know. But look at the green arrows pointing back out. In exchange for that capital, the government injects physical public goods back into society. We're talking interstate highways, public schools, legal systems, emergency responders. The wealth goes in, the societal foundation comes out. It basically alters the raw efficiency of the core engine to provide the stability required for that engine to exist in the first place. But wait, what happens if you don't spend every single dime of your paycheck on goods or taxes? That brings us to Section 3, the role of banking. Take a look down at the bottom right. Here lies the banking sector. You see, when you stash money away for a rainy day, it creates a leakage from our main circular track. Think about it. If everybody simply hoarded their extra cash under their mattresses, the firms wouldn't make enough revenue. They'd start laying off workers, and the whole system would grind to a halt. The banking sector exists to act as a massive financial detour. It catches those escaping red arrows and prevents the economy from stalling out. The real genius of this system is in the transformation. Money enters the bank from households as savings. Instead of buying a new TV, you park that cash in an account. But banks aren't just giant, dusty vaults guarding stacks of $100 bills. They immediately take your unspent income and inject it right back into the resource market as investment for firms. Your dormant savings account is literally what funds a local business's loan to build a new factory or allows a startup to hire 50 new engineers. By converting household savings into business investments, the bank ensures those red arrows never actually stop moving. Which leads us to Section 4, going global. Hovering up there in the top left corner is the foreign sector. And notice its unique placement here. It doesn't connect to your household and it doesn't plug into your workplace. It taps exclusively into the product market at the very top. Why is that? Because we interact with the global stage primarily through finished goods. We aren't directly swapping labor with a factory overseas. We are engaging with the final products they create, and they're engaging with ours. This is really where our domestic engine breathes. When we buy imported goods, like, say, a smartphone assembled overseas, a red arrow of domestic money gets siphoned completely out of our home loop and sent abroad. It's just another form of leakage. But when our domestic firms export their creations, foreign money floods right back in, chasing our green arrows of outgoing goods. This global trade acts as a massive pressure valve, constantly rebalancing the volume of wealth and resources circulating inside our home borders. Obviously, if we import way too much without exporting, our engine starts losing fuel. And finally, Section 5, the complete flow. Okay, step back and take a look at the fully operational machine. It is an incredibly intricate, flawlessly balanced web. Your daily labor fuels the firms forge the products, and those products flow right back to your doorstep. Simultaneously, the government taxes the flow to build the roads you drive on. The banks leverage your unspent savings to birth new industries, and the global market trades goods for our dollars. Every single red arrow of wealth is perfectly counterweighted by a green arrow of tangible reality. It all continuously feeds into itself, reacting and adjusting to every tiny transaction, keeping the lights on and civilization moving forward. So what initially looked like an intimidating, chaotic maze of spaghetti arrows is actually a highly structured, logical map. We've delivered on the core promise here, mapping out the exact pathways of how money, resources, and products flow in an economy. We've taken the invisible matrix of everyday life and made it entirely visible. So, I'm going to leave you with this thought. Tomorrow, when you buy that coffee, deposit a paycheck, or grumble at a tax bill, ask yourself, which arrows are you activating in the machine right now? Are you the green arrow providing vital labor, or the red arrow demanding a product? And more importantly, if your money suddenly stopped flowing tomorrow, which sector of this beautiful, fragile machine breaks first? Keep exploring, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in our next explainer.